Live from a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs Podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Frenay, and the occasional guest will dive in and pick apart the stuff that really matters most to you. We're too lazy to actually solve any of these problems, but we can definitely stir the pot. From schools, politics, parking in the fire lane, to those horrible people who drive BMWs. And here with this week's episode, live from the kitchen table, Tim Hamilton and John Frenay.
And welcome to the Maryland Crabs Podcast. It is Thursday. It is noon. That means it is time for a new episode. This is John Frenay. I am flying a little bit solo this week. Tim will join me back again next week. And today we've got a repeat guest on the program because we like repeat guests. And actually, no, Dr. Freedman was a wealth of information the last two times we spoke with him. And we wanted to check in again on a whole bunch of different things. We talked about the flu, which is pretty rampant right about now, and we're in the middle of flu season. We talked about Noro-Virus. We talked about the opioid problem here in Maryland. And we got into it a little bit with the HPV and the episode we had with Josh Mazur, the, quote, anti-vaxxer. And since Tim's not able to be here, we don't have any of this back and forth banter, so let's just get right into it.
Baltimore native and hard rock icons, Kiss, have added a second show this Sunday at Union Jacks in Annapolis. Doors open at 4 p.m. for dinner. General admission and VIP tickets are available. VIP includes a meet and greet before the show. Don't miss platinum-selling Hits this Sunday at Union Jacks in Annapolis. For tickets and more info, go to unionjacksannapolis.com.
We're back here on South Cherry Grove Avenue or Lane or something like that. It involved medical clinics with Dr. Michael Freedman, once again, who's our sort of resident medical expert. How are you?
I'm good, John. Thanks for coming by.
Good. How's the surviving the winter?
Surviving the winter thus far, yeah.
That's good. And the sun had a good fall and a good summer?
Yep, the shortest day of the year is over, December 21st, and now every day gets longer until we're in summer.
That is true. I think the last time we were talking about concussions.
Yeah.
And as sports season jumped in there, and as we are now in the heart of winter, we just had our first snowfall about a week ago, I guess it was, and everybody's getting sick.
Yep.
So it's your busy time, I guess, and
yeah,
I'm probably putting myself at risk just sitting here breathing this crap in the office, or what?
Well, you got the whole yellow hazmat suit on. That was a good idea. Rebreathers. I'm glad you did that.
Absolutely. But what's the deal on the flu? And what we did talk about flu several times ago, and you just recently you penned an article for Ion Annapolis, and I've got to say that anytime that you write something, whether it be about swimming in the bay with cuts to flu to rabies and it gets a lot of traction. People are very interested in it, and obviously rightfully so for their health.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've lived here for 20 years, and I've seen people for 20 years, and so I have a sense of what concerns people and what are really valid concerns. And then I like to really thoroughly research it and know what I'm talking about. And
right.
Make sure I don't just put
right.
out some nonsense.
So is flu? Last time we talked about flu was a big thing, and I think we got it sort of close to the end of the season.
Yeah,
and we're kind of in the middle of it now.
Well, so last year's flu season was one of the worst on record, certainly the worst in decades, and 80,000 people died, which was, a huge number, and I think it was around 800,000 people were hospitalized, and multi-millions got
right.
sick, but it was one of the worst, certainly that I remember, and according to the CDC and those that track it, it was definitely one of the worst in decades.
Is this year looking to be similar or better, or don't know yet?
So far, it's looking much better, which is encouraging. As a matter of fact, up until the first week of January, we were running at what the CDC labels as minimal flu activity, and that's the lowest rating it can be. And then it spiked to high very suddenly in the last week of December, first week of January. Anecdotally, here in the office, we're seeing a ton of it. We're definitely seeing a lot. That and Noro-Virus. That's the stomach flu.
Okay, and Noro-Virus. I mean, typically, we never really hear about that on land. It seems
right.
like it's take a cruise, get Noro-Virus. I mean, it comes with.
That's right. Nothing better than getting on Sovereign of the Seas.
Wait! They said it was the fun cruise.
Right. Vomiting with your neighbors.
And I've actually got some friends that just came back from Costa Rica, and they got some sort of something on the airplane, which was, they said the flight crew and everything else was incredible, with 3/4 of their family who just were
Well, and I'll tell you, not to branch off too much, but when you talk about flu, there's the upper respiratory flu that we're talking about today, and there's what a lot of people call the stomach flu, and that's usually Noro-Virus or something similar to that. And the difference is when you have the flu, you're like headachy and achy all over and coughing, and you've got some kind of upper respiratory stuff.
I feel like I was run over by a train.
Right. But Noro-Virus is nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and you can also feel exactly the same way, the run over by the train feeling, totally no energy, just want to lay in bed, and you're, without TMI, sitting on the toilet, with the bucket, and
right.
Pretty miserable.
Right, yeah.
But, a lot of people come in and they don't understand that the difference between regular flu and what people call the stomach flu is usually Noro-Virus.
Is there a thing called the stomach flu? Is that a thing, or is that just sort of a?
It is. I mean, it's not a medical term, but it relates to this Noro-Virus or some kind of viral gastroenteritis. That'd be the official title for that if you didn't know exactly what caused it. But what's interesting about it, and people should know, is it's like, as you know, for the cruises you mentioned, it's super contagious, and more contagious than the flu and a lot of other things. And it can last on surfaces for up to 4 weeks. So, like, if someone presses, floor 13 on your elevator, if someone touches a handle and they've,
and it hasn't been cleaned as well as it should be, I guess.
Yeah, well, and it really takes some sterilization to clean it properly. Hand sanitizer does not kill Noro-Virus. So you actually do have to wash your hands for like that full 30 seconds and singing your alphabet or happy birthday.
Well, they've said that for years, that the hand sanitizer, it's essentially sort of making your body not necessarily, it's not working in the intended circumstances as you consistently use it. Yeah,
there's some concerns that it's impacting the natural bacteria that should be in your system. There's lots of bacteria in the gut.
To fight.
Yeah, that are normal things that live with you and help you. And so it's creating some resistance and some other problems like that. But it's still better than dying of flu. If you're one of the 80,000 people last year that died of flu, you wish you'd use some hand sanitizer more often.
Sure. You talked about hand sanitizer. Okay, so let's talk about respiratory flu, the upper chest. That's the coffee, running nose, feel like hell type of thing. What's the best way to avoid it? I mean, it is a viral thing, right?
Correct.
So, you're going to be able to pass that around
easily. So it's spread by respiratory droplets. If you cough, sneeze, whatever. That's flying around the room. It gets on your hands, on your clothes.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks, man. Again, glad you're in the yellow suit.
Just spit it back in my face.
That's right. You might want to get the Windex out now. So it's easily spread. By far, the best thing to do is, and I am evangelically religious about doing this myself, is the frequent hand washing. If you don't have access to hand washing or you don't have time, the hand sanitizer, and never, ever touch your face unless you've just washed your hands. I think I am...
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that's my theory, is that...
As you just scratched your upper lip.
And immediately I'm like, wait a second. But, it's people that have something on their hands and touch their eyes. And when you bypass the skin, and you go right into a mucous membrane, like, your eyes or, inside your nose, you just rub your nose or something. I think that's where it's really gaining access the fastest.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. I know as an adult, I think my mother probably, spent half of her life telling me to, wash your hands, your hands. You went to the bathroom, wash your hands, get ready to eat dinner, wash your hands. And I find that as an adult, I'm doing it more often.
Yes.
and I think a lot of businesses and places, I mean, they're making it easier. It's sort of like recycling. Okay, once recycling got easier, I jumped on that bandwagon. Before it was like, no, put the bottles in the trash and we'll take care of it. But I think now that you go into the movie theater, okay, and they've got the sinks that you put your hands under and they turn on real easily, and then the soap just comes out, and you can do it, which is great because then you're not recontaminating yourself by pulling the thing. And I mean, I even get a little bit anal about it, and I'll grab a paper towel to open the door handle on the way out, and then toss that in the trash on the way.
By the way, the door handle on the way out of the bathroom, the cleanest thing in the entire bathroom. Just they've tested it because everyone's with dirty hands is touching everything else, and then so many people are doing the same thing you're doing.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense. So keep your hands away from your face.
Can I give you one more little aside? I don't want to totally derail this. A personal pet theory I have about the hand washing in bathrooms, those new air hand dryers are so loud. I haven't checked the decibel level on them yet, but I believe they're going to lead to hearing damage eventually.
There's a conspiracy theory here.
I'm telling you, someone please take that, package it up, and give it to Jenny McCarthy or something.
I've heard about that. I mean, people are saying that the air dryers are not good, as well as because, I mean, you've got, again, the germs that maybe, as you say, floating around the bathroom, maybe not necessarily on the hands that are being dried, that, it's got such forceful air to dry it that it's
aerosolizing,
blowing the stuff up in the air.
Yeah, that could be. I hadn't heard that, but that absolutely makes sense. I'm going to wrap that up with my entire fight against
this. Is awesome, man. We got conspiracy theories and everything else going on here.
Yeah.
Washing your hands, keeping them away from your face. Yeah. Obviously, cough and sneeze into the crook of your arm, or
the old vampire thing. I think that adequate hydration plays a really important role. Drinking enough water that your pee is fairly clear at all times. There's something about the fact that your blood isn't concentrated. So if you do get something, you can get bacteria, you can get virus into your bloodstream, into your body, and it won't cause any problem. It's only when it's at a certain number, which Noro-Virus, for instance, the stomach flu, you need a very small number, whereas other things you need, like E. coli, you need a lot of it in order to get sick from it. But if your bloodstream is more hydrated and your kidneys are filtering things through more rapidly, I think it makes sense that would keep you a lot healthier and be able to filter out anything that you might get in your system. And then anything that boosts your immune system, like rest, eating nutritiously, whole foods, not eating sugars, and avoiding the things we know.
Whole foods, you're talking about like the supermarket, or you're just talking
nibbling away on the building, whole, healthy foods, right. Anything that's not going to survive for 14 years in 7-Eleven.
Right. They say the outer ring of the supermarket is anything in the aisles typically is processed and not for you. They say to go the outer ring, which I mean in my supermarket, it's got like the vegetables, it jumps over into like the dairy. Yeah. And then it goes back into meats and cheeses. Yeah. And
I hadn't heard that. I like that.
And then it gets to the ice cream on the final end, but it's and the Cool Whip, which will give you cancer.
You are literally selecting your grocery store based on where the ice cream is.
Well, most grocery stores are laid out the same way, though. That's they say that I've heard that you just go around that because it sort of makes sense because you've got to bring everything into the aisle, and that's where your preservatives are, and that can that box of licorice or whatever can stay on there for months or years. Somebody that doesn't like you said drink the fluids, but the water. Yeah. What do you suggest for somebody that does not like? I don't say doesn't like water, but gets tired of it. I'm trying to cut back on diet sodas. And what I've found is there's diet cranberry, which has like next to no calories or something in that, combined with lime seltzer water that everybody I don't even know what brand it is, but it's all over. And just sort of mix that up as a little cocktail. And that works for me. And I don't know whether that's healthy or not, but I like it. It's a good alternative just to sitting there and drinking bland water.
Yeah, no, that sounds like great. I mean, the seltzers I definitely like. Avoid soda water, is better than tonic if you're mixing things. And if you're getting cranberry juice, try not to get the cranberry cocktail, but rather the 100% cranberry juice. Mm-hmm. there's a big backlash, which I happen to agree with all the diet, sugar replacement items. They're really coming into question as to how healthy all that stuff is.
Okay.
We haven't hit the saccharin part yet, where everyone's like in a total panic. But there's definitely mounting evidence that it affects your metabolism in a pretty negative way.
Okay.
I think you're better off with natural sugars of cranberry juice with no added sugar than when you would be with like a diet cranberry.
Okay. Fair enough. So what are the symptoms that we're seeing in the respiratory flu this year? Again, pretty much the same thing, the coughing and the... Yeah,
it's always pretty standard. I think that for me, what makes flu most, what really raises my red flag that it might be flu is how rapidly it starts. So if you get a sinus infection or bronchitis or something like that, it usually creeps on over a day or two and then is kind of getting progressively worse by day 3 or 4. With the flu, you suddenly, almost you can snap your fingers when you start feeling sick, and within an hour or two, you're totally down. You can't try to struggle through work. You really have to be on the couch or in bed. You just feel awful. You're getting the hot and cold sweats.
Now, is that pretty consistent with flu? All years?
Yeah. It's what really differs is the complications of flu, whether people get the pneumonias, or if the flu progresses on to get more severe where you need to be hospitalized or put on a ventilator or die from it. So and that's really determined by how similar the strain was to the previous year. So if it changes a lot from one year to the next, then the body reacts in a way where it has never seen anything like it before, and you get much sicker. But it doesn't tend to do anything with the flu bug itself per se.
Well, you said that last time you said the flu changes its DNA every single year. It sort of says, oh, cripes, they're on to us. Right. We need to figure out a different way to get into the body.
Yes.
And I know that you last time we spoke, we talked about flu shots. I'd like to touch base on that again, but you had said that the flu shots we are getting in whatever current season is actually designed to prevent whatever had occurred the years past.
Correct.
And is that still the case here?
That's correct. Yeah. So, it takes a while to make all the flu vaccines and to get it all perfected and ready. So it's just not possible to match the flu of the current year with the flu vaccine of the current year. We start giving flu shots, we're giving them more all year round than we used to, but September, October is when we start. And the flu vaccine, by then, you haven't even seen a case of the flu yet, or there's only been a few, not enough to know what you're going to actually be seeing. So if they started ramping it up in October, November, it just wouldn't be available, for weeks, if not months.
And you're still a fan of flu shots?
Very much so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's unequivocal, and I see a ton of people, that don't want to get them, and that's fine. I'm a rugged individualist. I believe that everyone, has their own opinion, and I don't take a patriarchal approach of forcing anything down someone's throat. But yesterday, a guy I was talking to, a patient said, the best rationale I've ever heard for taking a flu shot was, I don't have time to get the flu. I don't have time to be sick for multiple days, and I just can't go down. I can't be out. And in 2019, that's a rallying cry. Nobody has time, to be sick for 3 or 4 days.
Unless you work for the federal government.
Unless, of course, you are furloughed. Yeah. So and even then, everyone's got there's so many things to do. Life has moved too fast.
Well, it is. Time is precious there. We had another episode with a gentleman named Josh Mazer, who is an advocate, some will say a vaxxer.
Yeah.
And we talked about the HPV vaccine.
Yeah.
And he made what I felt was a very strong argument, and what he looked at is that I believe it was Merck, which was the drug company that produces the major one, had infused something like $90 million worth of marketing funds into Maryland to market this HPV vaccine.
Yeah.
And he took real offense to it in that it was going through schools. The health department was sending letters to the schools saying, this is a statewide emergency. We need to make sure all the teachers are recommending everybody to get this vaccine and so on and so forth. And he thought that was inappropriate. He brought that through. And then there was the case of the woman up in Timonium, I believe, who passed away because of that. And it was found in the court of, and I'm going to mess up the name, but there's a drug court in D.C.
Oh, yeah.
That, it's not really a court, but it has.
I have one of the judges comes here.
It has
very familiar with that court. Yeah.
It has a pot of money when they find that there was an issue, and they did. They did find that it was the HPV that actually killed her. It got an arrhythmia, and it had ended up killing her. So there is that question. There's a lot of people that do question the HPV. Now, my kids have all had it, and he's not had his, but he totally believes in the flu shot. So, he's not a true anti-vaxxer.
Well, that's interesting, yeah.
But it's just this one particular thing. I mean, as far as the HPV, what's your opinion on that?
A few years ago, I was helping with that marketing campaign. In a manner of speaking, there was a documentary called "Someone You Love."
Right, and that was produced. Actually, a local woman that was produced. We tried to follow up with her because she was very upset about the episode with Mazer.
Yeah,
and when we called her back and we said, "Hey, I want to hear the other side of the story," she disappeared. It was like Cheryl Strakalakalis, and it's a big long Greek name.
It's Cheryl. So I worked closely with Cheryl for several months, and we screened that film at Ann Arbor Community College and a number of different places, and we would have people from the documentary would come in and talk to the people about things. When you're talking about vaccines or any medicine for that matter, there's nothing that's not without risk. I mean, aspirin kills a bunch of people every year. Tylenol, it's any drug, no matter, and even the supplements and the vitamins and things that are ostensibly safe. It's not hard to find that 1 in a million or 1 in 10 million where it's killed somebody or hurt someone. You have to look at it as a cost-benefit analysis or a risk analysis, and 30,000 people every year die from cervical cancer. Disproportionately, a lot of people are, young and in the prime of life. It can affect the people's ability to get pregnant or carry a pregnancy. We're also now finding that HPV may be related to a lot of esophageal and throat cancer, as we're detecting HPV there. It's really become the first vaccine-preventable cancer. And it just can't be emphasized enough how imperative. Again, if you're one of the people that loses your sister or your mom or your daughter to cervical cancer, and that there was something you could have done 100%, 98%.
It's not enough.
Prevented it, yeah. But HPV, and if you're HPV negative, you get your PAP every 5 years, and it's been a huge game changer.
Right. Well, I think that my thing, and I agreed with him on this, was that HPV is fairly new. I mean, when we were growing up, we'd never heard about it, and guys can get it too. Okay, so it's just not a female thing. And all of a sudden, in probably about 12 years ago, it came out like gangbusters.
Yeah.
HPV. And all the pediatricians and everything else are saying, "Oh, let's do this to your kids. You got to do this, and it prevents cervical cancer down the line and everything else." Yeah. Has there been enough time, do you think, to really evaluate whether this is working? I mean, do we have enough of a sample of people that have had it?
Definitely. Yeah.
That have, if it's...
Have had the vaccine, yeah.
But it's striking people in, like you say, the middle of the night. So, my daughter, had it when she was probably 13, 14, and she's 26 now. If she were to get cervical cancer at 36, that's very early.
Right. But she's not going to, because she had the HPV vaccine. She can cross it off.
Right, but do we have enough time to study those people that are doing that? I mean, again, and the other argument there is that you don't, do we want to wait till we have 100 years worth of studies
Right.
to act on it?
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point. And the reality is there have been definitely medicines that have been pushed into market, things that have been covered up by pharmaceutical industries. And I point to like Actos, Avandia. There's been just tons of meds over the years that in post-marketing analysis, not in the initial 5,000 or 10,000 people tested, but once a million or multiple millions of people are using it, now you start seeing some kind of serious major problem with it. And you have to kind of go back and reevaluate that risk-benefit analysis over time. But yeah, the question is, depending on the severity of the problem, for instance, a cervical cancer, do you want to wait 20 or 30 years to buy into it? Like, with polio, would you have wanted to, skip that vaccine from 1950 to 1980?
That's so true. I mean, I can see both sides of the thing.
And the marketing money, by the way, the problem is when you have a new invention or a new medical breakthrough, it's not something that everyone's going to adapt immediately. The public is not necessarily going to adapt it. Adopt it. Sorry, the physicians and the providers aren't going to necessarily. Sure. So you actually have to. You have to get that point across multiple times until people start realizing they need to do it. They need to make it part of. Doctors are so rushed, and to add another thing on their checklist that they have to be pushing and discussing and trying to talk someone into. Yeah, you have to kind of push them.
Well, I can't. Imagine doing what you do as being a general practitioner, and I've often likened you to like the old country doctor with a lot of tech behind you. I talked to Dr. Barlow, who's a plastic surgeon, on some of the procedures, and he's specialized. So he's got this is I need to know about boobs, and I need to know about butts, and I need to know about eyebrows, and
I know what was I thinking,
and ears. But again, you've got to worry about the flus, the cancer, the early stages of cancer, to be able to detect that. If somebody comes in and whether it be a lung cancer or a colon cancer or whatever it may be, the everyday ailments, the broken bones. There's a lot of stuff, and as you'd mentioned, there's so many different ways to get in there, and so many ways to affect the human body to sort of send it off on a weird trajectory, to figure out how to do it. Evolve Medical Clinics. You've been here for now what?
Going for 5-6 years, yeah.
And you're tucked, I hate to reference other businesses, but you're sort of tucked behind Lido Pizza and a couple doors down from Soul, which is a great place right off of Forest Drive.
Awesome, yeah.
And the CVS. Mm-hmm. And I've tried to describe to me, I've told a number of friends about the practice, but tell me in your words what the practice is all about.
Well, so we do two different things. We do urgent care on an a la carte basis. If someone just needs urgent care and they don't feel like waiting a long time and they want to see really good people, there's a bunch of people that use us as such. But really, our focus is on primary care, like general internal medicine, general family practice type stuff. And unlike other offices, we have a membership-based situation, which really works well for people that either they don't have insurance or they have a high deductible, which almost everyone's got a $6,000 deductible nowadays.
Sure.
And for as little as $49 a month, it lets us, instead of seeing 30 people a day or 35 people a day, we see 8 or 10 people a day. So we can really focus on each person. One
thing that I've appreciated, and I've come to you several times, is that it's not the okay, so how you feeling? Okay, good. Well, put your pants on and you're you're good to go.
Yeah.
You'll sit there and you'll talk with people.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine that said he was just in here not too long ago, and again, same thing. He said, you spent the time with him and everything else to discuss whatever issue that he had. I remember going to a dentist who I don't think is in business anymore up the road at Chinkapin and Forest. And I was lamenting the days when they used to have like spit cups.
Yeah.
And he said, no, it's all about moving people through the office because the insurance is cutting down their pay and everything else, the way the business worked. He said, we can get an extra 15 patients a day if we, suck the spit out of their mouth with the little thingamajigger, as opposed to having them lift up in the chair, lean over, get the sip cup, rinse and spit. And I just don't think about that. I hate to think that, medicine, whether it be dental or, otherwise, has turned into that.
Oh, very, very much so. I mean, it's all about, numbers. It's the insurance industry has decreased in reimbursement so much so that, most docs, it's a numbers game. And it's like, Walmart, you're only going to make 2 or 3 cents on each product, so you got to move a ton of them.
Right.
And, I just don't think that model is reasonable for humans.
Well, you've shaken up, I don't say the medicine world, I mean in the practice world in this little burb of Annapolis that we've got here. And I mean, it's different. It's, you come in, if you've got an appointment at 10 o'clock in the morning, that's when your appointment starts. Yeah. Unless you're doing a podcast and then you're getting on his day off and he drags in. But you come in at 10 o'clock. I mean, you value your client, your customer, your patient's time. Yeah. The convenience as far as being, refilling prescriptions. I know you've said, pull up at the back door and we'll, hand a prescription out and,
Well, the other thing too is that I was thinking about, why can't I provide the kind of care that I provide, like if a friend calls me up, or sends me a text with a picture of,
some gross thing growing someplace.
Yeah, do I need to see you for this? Or, what do I need to get an x-ray for this? Or is this going to need an antibiotic? Or what do I do? 9 times out of 10, it can be managed by text. Text, email, maybe a phone call.
So is that something that you regularly do?
Yeah, all the time.
I mean, so if all of a sudden I, fall down and I've got this just really gross bruise on my forearm, I can take a picture of it and send it to you, and you can say, oh, it might be broken. Yeah. Let me X-ray it, or just put ice on it.
And I'll send you via text or email. I would send you a referral to get an X-ray done or an MRI, or what depending on what area it was and what needed to happen. And if that then test came up positive, mind you still haven't had to see a doctor yet, I'd get you in with an ortho that day, and you just go directly to the ortho and skip the urgent care, skip the ER, skip your doctor's office, skip waiting 2 or 3 days. It's just...
And while I love Anne Arundel Medical Center, skipping the ER always sounds like a good plan, because they're always backed up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of people just use it as their primary care doctor, and it's a bane of every hospital, I think, in the country.
Totally.
But I mean, that's really cool. And I mean, you do have online medical records, so you can log on to your intranet, I guess, or whatever they.
But you can't do these things in the current environment with the way insurance works. You have to see. I think it's 26 people a day or some number before you break even for the day. So any physician or nurse practitioner or provider out there who's seeing people, they have to see X number per day until they start to be able to bring home any money to their family. So, whatever that number is, 22, 24, 28, you're spending a great part of your day just paying for the overhead.
I'm sure.
And it's because of the huge bureaucracy of insurances. And the way I see it, if you wait for the government to fix it, or if you wait for Aetna or Cigna or Care First to fix it, it ain't happening. Right. So there's this huge movement that we're part of, that now the American Academy of Family Physicians is behind. Congress, the United States Congress is behind it. They just passed a bill helping to promote this, and it's now at the Senate. It's expected to go through and be signed into law. There's just this tremendous groundswell of excitement about direct primary care and carving insurance companies out of the majority of the day-to-day stuff, 85-90% of what happens to you in a given year, and then using insurance like you do with your car for catastrophic stuff. You get in a big accident, you need to replace your car. You need a heart transplant, you need something big, you use your insurance. If you just need wiper blades or gas, You
go to Pep Boys and pick up a pair.
Yeah.
What now do you accept insurance?
So you don't need it. You don't need it here. Okay. We don't do any billing to insurance companies.
Okay.
If you get labs done, we'll send them through your insurance company. If you get an MRI or whatever, we can send it through your insurance company. Meds, everything specialists can all go through your insurance company if you prefer. Or we also have discounted rates. So, for instance, if you want to get a complete blood count with us, that's, I think, $6 for members. Complete metabolic panel, $8. So a lot of people just prefer to pay the $6 or $8, and then at the end of the year they can submit it towards their deductible. And if they have gathered up 1,000 of those CVCs, and they might have met their $6,000 deductible.
Okay. Well, I mean, your office is very comfortable. It's, I know you've got the artwork of Charles Lawrence out front.
Yes.
And that rotates. I mean, I've seen some different artwork the times that I've been in here, and you've got some great scenes of Annapolis. Free coffee, free Wi-Fi. I happen to notice your table out front, which has a whole bunch of local businesses, and that really sort of speaks to really ingraining yourself into the community and the local community. I know you work with SOFO, which is South of Forest Drive Business Association.
Yeah.
I don't know what their full name is, but call it SOFO. But and I mean, you're promoting the local businesses. I mean, which is really what this is all about community. And certainly as a doctor, the old country doctor that with all the tech behind it.
When I got to town 20 years ago, and I guess it was.
Where'd you come from?
Well, I'm originally from Montgomery County, Maryland, but I'd gone off to Michigan for undergrad, as we were talking about earlier, and Philly for med school, and Atlanta for
Where'd you go to school in Philly?
Hahnemann, not Drexel,
okay.
Yeah, and then Emory in Atlanta. So when I first got back here, it was 97, and I started hanging out quite a bit on West Street, which was just then being developed. Brian had just opened 49 West, and Gavin was in the process of opening up, Gavin and Jody were opening up Tsunami, and I just really felt part of this community, and having, that this is a local community. I love Annapolis, Eastport. I love the feeling of community that you get in this area, and all throughout Anne Arundel County. It's very different than other places that I've lived.
I agree with you. You can't put your finger on it exactly, but there's something about it that is very special.
There's a lot of camaraderie, and people support the locals, and there's a really cool, artist, musician community.
And that's growing. That's growing, which is kind of neat. I think, there's a couple movers and shakers in town. I mean, I think, Allison Harbaugh, I think, certainly Brian Callahan to a point, Gavin to, before he was mayor probably, Jimmy Davies, and, Charles Lawrence and Jeff Huntington, certainly with all of his murals with Future History Now and everything else.
And those are all people that have been, people I've been connected with for, a long time. And I just, I feel a part of wanting to move that forward as much as possible, and, support it as much as possible.
Well, I think you've done a good job. I got a question for you. I was out there in your waiting room. Actually, it's more like a living room rather than a waiting room. To be honest with you, right next to the coffee machine and the water cooler, you got a sink, and it's got a bunch of rocks in it. So what's the deal with the rocks in the sink?
There's ongoing debate about those rocks. I think it's kind of zen and cool looking.
I'll give you that. But
the staff is not crazy. But originally, the rocks showed up because the sink that was installed when we first moved in here, it got dirty and rusty at the bottom. And instead of replacing the sink, I went out to Home Depot and I said, I'm just going to pour a bunch of rocks in here. And the staff is like, apparently they have to take it out every now and then and clean the rocks, and it's not. There was some debate about that recently. You may not see the rocks next time.
They do look a little bit zen.
Good. All right, good.
I will give you that.
I'm telling them later.
But what is your scope of services here? I mean, obviously you can do the physicals and the well visits, and I've got a boo-boo and I got a cough and all of that kind of stuff. But what do you do here? I mean, I know we've got a lot of stuff that's come in town. There's some other urgent care places that do the x-rays, and they've got the pharmacies and everything else. I know you don't have the pharmacy.
Well, we do have meds, and we actually, our antibiotics this year for members are free. So if you come in, with a cough or whatever, or a strep throat, we just hand you the antibiotic. There's no charge. You go, and that's it. There's only a few exceptions, like the ear drops, for whatever reason, are like $40 for us to buy.
When I used to work a bar, the bar owner said, "Okay, when we close, you can drink absolutely anything you want. Keep your hands off the Perrier. That stuff's expensive. I can have a top shelf booze. Just don't drink the fancy French water."
Right. So yeah, for some reason the ear is the fancy French water. But yeah, so we've got the antibiotics on site. We don't do X-rays as a very conscious decision because they are usually read by the urgent care doc and then they're overread the next day by the radiologist. And the machines that are available for urgent cares are very different. If you talk to Mark Begans at Chesapeake Imaging or any of the expert radiologists, they're going to tell you the machines that they have for their imaging are in a totally different class than most of the machines that you're going to buy, for a small place like this, because they can be very expensive. And that
would be when you say a different ball of wax. I mean, is just an inferior or a lower grade machine type?
Or just it's 10 years old, or so it's older, and then it's being read by someone who's not trained as a radiologist.
Right.
And which is fine, if it's clearly a fracture, then But there's very, very few times that I see someone who has clearly a fracture, and I, am not able to make that diagnosis by looking at it.
Right.
And so a lot of times I bypass the X-ray, and we send them directly over to ortho. And ortho, they've got good machines, and they do their own X-rays on site. And usually they do X-rays that are different than the radiologist would have gotten.
Sure, that's the old measure twice, cut once type thing.
Yeah,
I'm not going to take your word for it. I'm going to take my own picture and make my own thing so I don't screw it up.
Yeah.
But you do have relationships with the labs, with the specialists for the referrals that you.
We have a close relationship with Chesapeake, and we have discounted rates for MRIs, CAT scans, ultrasounds, anything that you can have done. Chest X-rays $50, MRIs $400, CT is like $250. So everything is highly discounted and very affordable, whether you are using your insurance or not using your insurance, whether you have it or don't have it. So my goal for 2019-2020 is to expand our direct network and to get other specialists on board to be able to have a one-price hernia surgery, to have a one-price, a vasectomy or something, just to be able to know, because there's the cost of the surgeon, there's the cost of the operating room, facility, there's the anesthesiologist, there's the pathologist, there's whatever trays they open. And the cost can go from, $1,500 to $8,000. And you just don't know until you get the bill. It's ridiculous.
Well, it seems, and again, when I talked to Dr. Barlow, he said that, he operates out of a surgical suite outside of the hospital. And then that seems to be the way that a lot of people are doing it. I mean, they're fully capable of doing it. I mean, they're capable of doing what they're there to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean they're not bringing trauma patients in that are we need a new whatever it may be, which I think is just a wonderful way to do it. I mean it's a much less stressful thing for the patient. It's it's a lot easier for the doctor. I mean they control their costs certainly.
They do a great job there. And there's a hospital fee that's attached to a lot of things that increases your total cost quite a bit.
Have you ever heard of a nonprofit called Medicine with a Mission?
I don't.
It's fairly new and it's just sort of starting out. And you mentioned when you said when you rip open the tray to do something and then you've got that cost.
Yeah.
And in the U.S. because of the whoever the medical authority is, FDA maybe, that oversees some of that stuff. Like if you buy a case of those trays of whatever it is that you guys may use, tongue compressors,
right,
or the strep throat tester things.
Yeah.
And they've got a ridiculous shelf life of 3 months in the U.S. Which, even though they're probably good for 30 years, they've got this 3 month shelf life. So if they're unused out of that case at the end of the month, they destroy them.
Yeah.
And this is a nonprofit that started actually over in Arnold, and a friend of mine, Gene Deems, who works with DNR, and a young doctor that just got his degree, I guess, down in Grenada, is doing that. And what they're doing is that they're collecting these rather than letting hospitals and doctors and practices destroy these things, taking them and bringing them to third world or other areas that don't have the infrastructure to support the type of medicine. And
That's
then, I'm
awesome.
sure they're coordinating with Doctors Without Borders and all these other type of things to be able to administer them. But I mean, you sit there and you think, okay, I just paid, $50 for a strep throat test thing that probably cost $9, and most of them are going to get wasted at the end of the month just because somebody thought that, it's going to be a heavy strep month. And I think it's just a wonderful deal when we've got that type of waste. It's sort of a medical recycling.
Yeah, it's even worse than that. I mean, one of those trays might cost $300, $400, $500, and they open up, take one clamp out, and then don't use anything else.
Everything else is
or they never touch anything in it, but it's opened before the surgery, and it's just ready, and then they end up not using it, and everything has to get tossed.
Cha-ching, cha-ching,
Yeah,
cha-ching.
yeah, and you, the patient, pay for it.
Yeah.
But I love that. I love that concept. We used to do that with sample medications. I'd go around collecting those, and when I was running the Annapolis Outreach Clinic at Stan Center, and again, expired medicine. You weren't supposed to use it, but if you can't get any other blood pressure medicine,
you take it.
We've had tons of samples, and we'd be able to keep people going, indefinitely on nothing but samples. So
that's fantastic. There needs to be more of that. I mean, I get that you don't want to. You've got to have the expirations. I get that, but I mean, if as opposed to going without, I think it's a great alternative, provided that there's no adverse effects to it. I mean, it may not work. Yeah. Okay, that's not too bad.
Like 5 or 10% less effective, but it's 99% less effective not taking anything.
Well, I had a doctor one time, a long time ago, tell me we were talking about Tylenol and the dosage that they put on the labels, and he was just talking about the FDA is just so over the top careful, and probably a little bit more with Tylenol after everything that they had before. But he said, no, you can pretty much come close to almost four-dosing that before you even start to think that it may be close to an overdose. It's that, yes, 2 pills are probably going to take care of your headache. But if you need to take 3, that's certainly not a problem. And if you take 4, then okay, that's probably about the max that I would want you to take.
Almost any other example would work for me.
Okay.
Tylenols.
Okay. Again, it may have not have been Tylenol.
That's a dangerous one. But you're right. They do. The expiration dates are like 6 months sooner than they need to be. Probably the quantity that would get you in, like Tylenol, the amount of Tylenol that would get you into trouble is probably about 4,000 milligrams a day, and but that's, you don't want to take all of it at one time.
Sure.
So, but there's definitely a safety net built in there, which is good because nowadays people, they open up a bottle of something and they just chug it down without looking at anything.
It is. Hey, are you seeing? Do you have what are you seeing in the heroin and the opioid thing? I mean, do you see much of any of that here? Obviously you know as much as we all do, but
we see a ton of people that are just freshly back from rehab or are doing a program and that are on some kind of anxiety or depression type medication like Zoloft or something, and they can't access any kind of mental health care. There's that's as you might have seen with Anne Arundel opening their new services, or starting to build their new services. That's been a huge problem in this community. Is particularly, again, insurance companies have really impacted the availability of mental health, and so if you've got, like, I saw a kid with Cigna last night, and he needs to see a psychiatrist just to get his Zoloft. Well, he really doesn't. It's not that big a deal. We do tons of this stuff, and but he called Cigna. He calls the 1-800 number. They give him a list of 10 psychiatrists. He calls everyone on the list. They're either no longer taking Cigna. They're no longer in network. They're no longer in the area. They're not taking new patients. And he's lost, and he's not getting his meds, and he's trying to recover, from opiates, and so we see a lot of people.
We do put a lot of roadblocks in. That's
nothing but roadblocks
to do it. I think we're taking steps in the right direction. I just saw a report that the state of Maryland. We're still increasing the deaths. I thought it was kind of interesting that fentanyl has overtaken heroin. It's overtaken cocaine, and that carfentanil was just sort of like hot flash in the pan.
Thank God.
That's there were no deaths in the first three quarters of 18 from that. So I think
It's the number one leading cause of preventable death in the United States. Is opiate overdose.
It is, and they also said that prescribed opioids are way down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's and I mean that's the government, I'll say, cracking down on physicians and pharmacies to over prescribing and whatnot, and it's I think that's a good thing, but it's we need to do more, that's for sure. I mean it's a terrible catch-22. I think the city or the county got the Safe Stations program, mm-hmm. which is and I think it's great that you've got people that are in recovery that are coming in here, and I think that's the key thing, is to have somebody that wants to recover.
Oh my God, I love it. I love seeing someone who's new in recovery or far along, and it's just, I love helping them stay motivated and stay on track. And I personally have seen, people die, and it's just, it's catastrophic. They leave behind little kids and, spouses and parents, and it's just, and their life, these are young, healthy, smart, yes. wonderful, lovely people from all economic backgrounds, and they're just, and it's over at 26
there's
or 32.
No discrimination in addiction, that's for sure.
It's just awful.
And I know that, you and I are similar in age, but I mean, growing up, I don't ever, you heard about the heroin junkie or something like that.
Yeah.
He was like, sleeping in a cardboard box on the street in New York.
Yeah.
But it was never on Main Street.
No.
Of wherever you are. Yeah. And anymore now, I would say in the last 10 years, I can count probably a dozen friends that have had a relative or a child die because of an addiction, and or is gone through serious rehab, and is I had a friend of mine that said, you fell in with a bad crowd here. You obviously don't have the willpower to stay away from that crowd, because he relapsed a couple times. Yeah. Got him into rehab, got him clean and everything else, and said, you're doing so great where you are, and this really breaks my heart, but you can't come home. Mm. I want you to live.
Yeah.
And we will come, we're going to come see you, we're going to come support you, we're going to do whatever, but you need to be where you've got the support. And up here, while we will give it to you, I'm not convinced that your friends will not give it to you, right. or the people that you may run into may not, and everything else. He said, you've established yourself as clean and sober in this location, and that's where you need to be. Heartbreaking conversation for a parent, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't want to take any more of your time, but Evolve Medical Clinics, and what is the technical address here? It's
509 South Cherry Grove, but it's it's like Columbia, Maryland. Everything's hidden for this one little area, so it's just behind the Capital One building.
That's right, the abandoned bank.
That's right, the CVS, Lido's, Seoul, Matsu Sushi.
Right. Well, everybody's been to Lido's, I'm sure, here, and you've got. If you haven't been to Seoul, definitely get to Seoul. They've got some great small plates and good food. Slide 2 doors down. Check out Dr. Michael Freedman at Evolve Medical Clinics. Just if you're not here, just peek at the awards that he's gotten in some of his windows. Peek in the office if they're closed or something like that. You do have great hours. You go into the evenings.
8 to 7 every day, except for Saturday is 9 to 2, and Sunday we're closed.
Yeah, you're responsive as hell. That's probably not the best tagline you want to run in the papers, but
I love it. That's it. I'm going to put a TM on that.
And if you are looking for a primary care physician or a primary care practice, I wholeheartedly recommend that you do come out to Evolve Medical Clinics. Also, you can go to Ion Annapolis and check out some of the articles that he's written for us. Always a wealth of information. We thank you for talking about the flu, your position on HPV. I might get you and Josh Mazer into like a room and get some mud and
let's do it.
sling it out there. And but that's that. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for coming out, John. Appreciate it.
And there you have it, Dr. Freedman from Evolve Medical Clinics on South Cherry Grove Avenue. A wealth of information for us. And I do recommend that if you are looking for a primary care physician, take a look at Evolve Medical Clinics. They are a unique practice. They are something I've never seen in my adult life. It's probably a throwback to the doctor of when I was a child. If you're ever frustrated with doctors that don't seem to really care and they're too pressured for time, this is the place for you. I can't recommend them highly enough. Next week, Tim doesn't know this yet, but I think we're going to do something different. I think we're going to try a recorded live call-in show. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Facebook because we will announce the time that we're recording it, and we'll ask people to call in, and we'll just put you on, and we'll just talk about whatever's on your mind. And if you wanted to do that, you can follow us on Twitter at MD Krabs Podcast. At Facebook, we've got a page and a group, both under the Maryland Krabs Podcast. You can give us an email at info@themarylandkrabs.com. Check out our website at marylandkrabs.com, or if you wanted to call us and leave a message, text us. We have a callback line. It is 443-266-3600. That will wrap it up for this week of the Maryland Krabs Podcast. We will be back again next Thursday at noon. And if you're someplace where you can give us a review or a rating, please do that. 5-star reviews are better. 4 stars are acceptable. 3 stars, nah, don't bother. And of course, give us a recommendation to your family and friends. And last but not least, my most sincere appreciation for listening. Have a good week. We'll see you next week.
This has been the Maryland Krabs Podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them in all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandkrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You still here? It's over. Go home. Go.